Clive Myrie.
At 10, a new image of the Princess of Wales, who warns she isn't out of the woods yet while undergoing cancer treatment. But in a personal message, she says, like anyone receiving chemotherapy, she has good days and bad days, and she is making progress.
Catherine will be attending the King's birthday parade tomorrow, her first public appearance this year.
Also tonight, it's been tough for the Scots at the Euros. Disappointment for the millions of fans watching back home. Rishi Sunak acknowledges the growing threat of Reform UK to the Conservatives in the election. And unique pictures and fresh insights into the behaviour of Antarctic whales.
On BBC London, in quiet dignity, hundreds take part in a silent march to remember the victims of the Grenfell Tower fire, exactly 7 years ago today.
Hello there. Tomorrow will be a significant day in the Princess of Wales' recovery while undergoing treatment following her cancer diagnosis. She'll be making her first public appearance in months at the King's birthday parade, also known as Trooping the Colour. Along with a new picture, Kate posted a personal message this evening saying she's making good progress, but adds that, as anyone going through chemotherapy will know, there are good days and bad days. She also warns she's not out of the woods yet. Johnny Diamond has our top story.
A new picture of the princess from the palace to mark a new stage in her journey. It's been almost 3 months since the princess revealed that she was undergoing chemotherapy, something that followed surgery earlier in the year.
The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present. My medical team therefore advised that I should undergo a course of preventative chemotherapy, and I'm now in the early stages of that treatment.
Since then, Prince William has worked alone and the palace has remained silent, though last week, when asked about Kate's progress, the prince said she was getting better. She'd have loved to have been at the D-Day commemorations, he said.
She'd love to be here today.
From the princess this evening, a message about these past long months. I'm making good progress, she wrote, but as anyone going through chemotherapy will know, there are good days and bad days. On those bad days, you feel weak, tired, and you have to give in to your body resting. But on the good days, when you feel stronger, you want to make the most of feeling well. My treatment, she wrote, is ongoing and will be for a few more months. Tomorrow is the King's birthday parade, Trooping the Colour, one of the biggest days of the royal year, and the princess says she will be there, back in the public eye with her children. There may be more public engagements to come this summer, but each one will depend on the princess's health. I am, the princess wrote today, not out of the woods yet. But from Windsor comes a message and a picture that speak of hope for days to come. Johnny Diamond, BBC News.
Well, Helena Wilkinson is in Windsor live for us tonight. Helena, the Trooping the Colour ceremony tomorrow taking on an added significance now for the royal family.
Yes, absolutely. And that photograph, Clive, that you saw in Johnny's report of Catherine was taken here near the family home in Windsor earlier this week. What is striking is just how personal that statement that we heard is from Catherine. She talks about how she feels on the good and bad days, and I think that will really resonate with people who have been affected by cancer. She has been missed, very much missed from public life, and so the news tomorrow that she will be attending Trooping the Colour is positive news. Her father-in-law, the King Charles, has said this evening that he is delighted that Catherine will be able to attend tomorrow. After tomorrow, we might see Catherine at some public engagements over the summer months, but it all depends on how she feels. She is still undergoing treatment. So very much the focus going forward, Clive, still is on her recovery.
All right, Helena, thank you for that. Helena Wilkinson there, live in Windsor. Now, Rishi Sunak has warned Conservatives considering voting for Reform UK in the election that they risk handing Labour a blank cheque. His comments come after one opinion poll put Reform ahead of the Tories for the first time. Other polls maintain the Conservatives are still second to Labour. Chris Mason has the latest.
So here he is. It might only be one poll and it might only be a marginal lead, but it's what's making headlines on the campaign trail today. And Mr Farage is going to find a microphone. That poll from YouGov suggests Reform UK are ahead of the Conservatives. Now, we should always be sceptical of one newsworthy poll, but the reason I want to take you to this event today is Reform, the poll suggests, have undoubtedly been gaining support in this campaign. Yeah. They have, it appears, been catching up the Conservatives, with Labour miles and miles ahead.
The election is over. Who is going to be the opposition voice to Labour in the House of Commons and in the country?
Now, I wonder who he's got in mind. Are you dreaming of the moment of being the leader of the opposition, standing there at the dispatch box, potentially throwing questions at a Prime Minister Starmer if he wins?
I'd be very, very happy if somebody younger, better than me comes along. But right at the minute, I do see myself as being that person. Yes, I do.
Steady on, Reform are an upstart party. This lectern's past its first flush of youth, and that is sticky tape holding up their logo. Are they even ready for this campaign?
Not really. The only way we can do this is we have to get the total number of votes well up over that 6 million figure, and if we do that, we will start to break through and win seats.
And that's because it's usually incredibly difficult for smaller parties to win seats at Westminster, even when lots of people across the country support them. There's another question too. Is he trying to overtake the Conservative Party, take over the Conservative Party, or finish it off?
Hey, you all right?
The Prime Minister's been doing what Prime Ministers do today. He's at a meeting of world leaders in Italy. But proceedings at the G7 summit took an unorthodox twist.
Happy birthday to you, Olaf. Happy birthday to you. Yeah.
The leaders of the world's biggest economies offering the German Chancellor many happy returns in the only way they knew how. Anyway, where were we? Ah yes, in the last hour or two, Rishi Sunak took some questions from reporters, including from Vicky Young from our team.
Why do you think so many are turning to Nigel Farage instead of you?
I think we're only halfway through this campaign, and the Conservative Party and me are going to fight for every single vote until the last day. And what I would say is, if that poll and all these things were replicated on election day, what that would be is handing a blank cheque to Keir Starmer.
Rishi Sunak claiming a vote for Reform would help Labour, who have their own views about Mr Farage themselves.
One thing I'd say to people about Nigel Farage is that he's never been tested on actually delivering on the change he campaigns for. He's never had that responsibility. If people want to see change in our country, change they can believe in, change the country can afford, the only way to deliver that change is by voting for Labour on July the 4th.
The grinning tormentor is revelling in all of this, but there have been false dawns for Nigel Farage before. The question is whether this time will be different.
We'll see you very, very soon.
Chris Mason, BBC News.
Well, let's have a look at the latest polling, shall we? How much weight should be given to suggestions Reform are ahead of the Conservatives? And what is the picture more widely with the parties? Well, Ros Atkins is here and he's been digging into the numbers. Ros.
Clive, thank you very much indeed. Well, first of all, let's look at the trends that are emerging in the polls. Here's the BBC's poll tracker. Using a range of polls, it shows the average support for each party through the campaign. Labour has a substantial lead, but both the Conservatives and Labour are slightly down. Smaller parties are up. The Lib Dems and Reform UK, though I should emphasise, here we can see on our poll tracker, Reform UK is 8 points behind the Tories. So what about that YouGov poll putting Reform UK ahead of the Conservatives? Here's Professor Sir John Curtis.
At the moment, at least, none of the other pollsters show Reform ahead of the Conservatives. Some of them show them not very far behind. And indeed, not every poll that's come out in the last few days has actually identified any increase in Reform support at all. So we need to be careful about just focusing on the one poll.
Now, through the campaign, you're sending us questions about the election to Your Voice, Your Vote. And recently, Richard in Ramsgate asked, as the polls stand, how would that relate to the numbers of seats won by each party? Well, under the first-past-the-post electoral system, smaller parties rarely have a number of MPs that matches their percentage of the national vote. So Reform UK's position in the polls is unlikely to translate to an equivalent number of seats. Some bigger polls, called MRP polls, do project how the House of Commons could look. They project how each constituency will go. And all of those recent polls give Labour a majority of well over 100, some higher still. Though, as with all polls, these projections should be treated with caution. Clive.
Indeed. OK, Ros, thank you. Ros Atkins there, our analysis editor. Now, Sir Keir Starmer says he's prepared to make enemies over issues such as planning in order to pursue economic growth. In an interview with the BBC's Nick Robinson, the Labour leader also said he would look again at Britain's relationship with the European Union to boost trade, although he ruled out rejoining the EU. Here's Leila Nafu.
If you'd like to take the chair over there.
His poll lead intact, his manifesto launched, but still questions for Sir Keir Starmer about difficult decisions on tax and spending that he could face within weeks. His answer? To go after the prize of economic growth. This his case for reform of the planning system.
Are you prepared to make enemies to make the economy grow?
Yes. We're going to have to be tough. We're going to have to change the way things are done. I'll give you one short example. I won't take long, but it makes my point. I spoke to the CEO of an energy company, say, how long would it take you to put a wind turbine farm up? He said, I could do it in 2 years. He said, you wouldn't get any power out of it for 13 years because I'd lose 5 years to planning, another 6 or 7 years before the grid connected. We cannot go on like that.
Could he boost growth through more trade with the EU? Unlike the last election, Brexit has not been top of the agenda this time. Keir Starmer said there would be no going back into membership, but a suggestion he could look again at Britain's relationship with Brussels.
I do think we can do better than the botched deal that we got under Boris Johnson. I think every business thinks that. So if there are businesses that are watching this, yes, I hear what you say about the barriers to trade, and we are going to do something about that. But the second thing, and I think this is important, is if you look at the problems for growth over the last 14 years, they were there, or many of them were there, before Brexit. So the idea that the sort of single silver bullet is simply the relationship with the EU is not something I accept.
The Conservative claim is that Keir Starmer is not being truthful about the tax rises he's planning.
The Labour Party are going to take the tax burden in our country to the highest level that it's ever been in our history. It's not me saying that, that's multiple independent analysis saying that. So that's the choice for everyone. I believe low taxes are good because people should be able to keep more of their hard-earned money. That's what we'll deliver. The Labour Party don't believe that. They're going to put your taxes up.
Keir Starmer has promised only targeted tax rises so far and none on working people. The Labour leader insists he has a new approach.
This is a party of wealth creation, of growth. And therefore, this boxing in that everybody is trying to do, particularly in recent days, that the only levers available to a Labour government or Labour Prime Minister is to sort of put up tax or pull down spending. I reject that. There is growth is the lever that I intend to pull.
And if he does pull that off and kickstart the economy, he'll have succeeded where others before him have not. Leila Nafu, BBC News.
Chris is here. I suspect there may be some folk out there throwing rotten veg at the telly. You know, why are you obsessing with polls? Why are we all obsessing with polls?
It's a good question, Clive.
It's an issue, isn't it?
It is, yeah. You know, and this morning when I woke up and I was looking at this poll, I was thinking, what do we do with this in terms of reporting it? Because the first rule of looking at polls, as John Curtis was saying, is if it's newsworthy, if it's somehow exciting or noteworthy, then it's probably not like the others and therefore treat it with caution. And I think we have done in the way that we've attempted to responsibly report it today. And the reason we have, well, two things. One is Reform have been growing in support. So in that sense, it's in line with that. But secondly, polls make the political weather. And you can't ignore the political weather in a campaign. They shape the psychology of a campaign. And not just ones like the one we've been touching on tonight, all of them, as Ros was talking us through, because the parties also have polls, their own private polls, and that shapes how they approach the campaign. Now, the curious thing with Reform UK, and it's a challenge for the smaller parties, the Liberal Democrats wrestle with this as well, is that you can do very well in terms of the number of votes that you get. UKIP in 2015 had nearly 4 million votes. They got 1 MP. For it. Liberal Democrats, by the way, are up a few points in the polls during the campaign. As far as the Tories are concerned, in response to all that, hearing from a very senior figure tonight, they hope this is a honeymoon for Nigel Farage. They hope that this poll is an outlier. They say their canvass returns when they're knocking on doors. There's lots of don't knows, so they hope they can tempt some of them back in the direction of the Conservatives. The good news, if you're a sceptic about polls, is it soon won't be as much about the polls, because landing on doormats pretty soon in the coming days for people who've registered for a postal vote will be that postal vote. So we're counting down to 2 weeks on Thursday. Very soon, for up to a fifth of people who will vote, the general election will be happening. That polling card will be on the kitchen table and a decision will be being made.
Sure. No more rotten veg. All right. Chris, thank you. Chris Mason, our political editor. Now, the Euros in Germany. It's been a sobering night for Scotland, playing the hosts in the first game of the tournament. They lost 5-1 and were down to 10 men by half-time. Well, Dan Rowan is live in Munich with all the gory details. Hi there, Dan.
Hey Clive, Scottish football had been waiting a long time for this moment. After an impressive qualifying campaign, they'd come here to Germany in expectation of perhaps springing a surprise, but despite huge levels of support, it wasn't to be.
It was the biggest party Scottish football has enjoyed in a generation. The Tartan army taking over, with tens of thousands descending on Munich. The many without tickets filling the city's fan park by mid-afternoon. Those lucky enough to have one. 1998 had Scotland savoured a major final, this time against the hosts no less. The gun given no chance, Germany leave humbled and must regroup quickly if their stay here is not to be a short one. That was Scotland's heaviest defeat at a major tournament for some 70 years. So a chastening, even a huge disappointment for the huge Tartan army that had travelled here to support their side. An emotion replicated, of course, back in Scotland, where my colleague Lorna Gordon is with fans in Cumbernauld.
Yeah, thousands of fans came to the stadium of Cumbernauld, lots of families, lots of young children. You know, Scotland fans are ever optimistic, but they've been left hoping that their team will find a way to come back. Young faces, high hopes. From men on stilts to men in kilts. As kickoff got closer, the noise and the optimism here was overwhelming.
It's a moment in history, yeah, so hopefully we can do it today. I'm positive, optimistic, but we'll have to wait and see.
I'm quite confident. I think I'm saying 1-0 Scotland. 1-0 Scotland!
The rainy weather hadn't dampened spirits, but with first one, then a second goal from Germany, the nerves set in. As Scotland conceded a penalty and a player sent off, 3-0 before half-time. In Dundee, some decided they'd seen enough. A Scotland goal lifted spirits for those that remained, including here in Cumbernauld. Consolation for the fans in the final minutes as it ended 5-1. Lorna Gordon, BBC News, Cumbernauld.
Scotland came here desperate to try and finally qualify for the knockout stages of a major tournament for the first time in their history. That ambition has, of course, been dented here this evening, and they know that they will need to at least win one of their two remaining games against Switzerland and Hungary if they are to achieve that. But while it is a hugely disappointing start, because 4 of the third-place teams in the 6 groups can still qualify for the knockout stages, there is still hope for Steve Clarke's side if needed to deliver to try and convince the fans around this football-mad country to believe, and they've done exactly that. It couldn't really have gone any better for the hosts. It couldn't have gone any worse, of course, for Scotland. England, meanwhile, they play their opening match against Serbia in Gelsenkirchen on Sunday.
All right, Dan, thank you for that. Dan Rowan, our sports editor there, live in Munich. Now, Now, here's Faisal with what's coming up on Newsnight.
Thanks, Clive. Tonight, as Keir Starmer outlines a closer trading relationship with the EU, we ask what might that look like. Join us live, Newsnight, BBC Two and iPlayer at 10:30.
Now, food manufacturers are recalling a small number of products understood to be sandwiches containing salad leaves. It comes after concerns over recent cases of E. coli. More than 200 people have been affected, some hospitalised. Hugh Pym is here. Are the authorities clear on where the outbreak has actually come from?
Well, clearer than they were, Clive. Last week we were told more than 100 people have been affected by an outbreak of the E. coli bacteria, a strain known as Estec, which was said to be clinically serious. But they were spread right around the UK, so it was hard for them to say what the source was. They thought it was probably a nationally distributed food product. And now they've got much more information on that. More than 200 have now been affected by this. Of those contacted, 40% of those have needed hospital treatment. And now 2 major food manufacturers, and possibly more to come, have announced a recall of a total of 60 product lines, sandwiches and wraps containing salad leaves. So they've had to come off the shelves of big retailers like Aldi, Asda, Co-op, Morrison's and Tesco's. Now, this is said to be a precautionary measure, but clearly follows advice from food regulators about the possible source, although more information, they say, is needed. Now, if you've bought one of these products, the advice is don't eat it. You can find a full list of what's been recalled on the BBC website.
All right. Hugh, thank you. Hugh Pym, our health editor there. Now, in the last few minutes, South Africa's parliament has elected Cyril Ramaphosa to a second term as president. It follows a groundbreaking coalition agreement. And this is the first time his party, the ANC, have had to share power since the end of apartheid 30 years ago. They're partnering up with the centre-right Democratic Alliance and 2 other smaller parties. President Putin says he's willing to call an immediate ceasefire in his war on Ukraine if Kyiv gives up 4 regions in the east of the country, now partially occupied by Russia. Speaking to a meeting of Russian ambassadors in Moscow, he also said Ukraine would need to abandon its ambition to join NATO. Western leaders dismissed the offer as a demand for Ukraine to capitulate, with Kyiv calling the proposals offensive to common sense. Now, the late Michael Mosley has been remembered this evening with a special programme on BBC One, looking back at his life and work. It's 5 days since his body was discovered on the Greek island of Symi after he went missing while on holiday. In his last broadcast, the BBC presenter, who helped millions live more healthy lives through diet and small changes, spoke about his approach. Here's David Sillito.
Too healthy, much, much, much too healthy.
Michael Mosley, and a TV tribute to a man who really did change lives. A guinea pig guru of healthy living who tested out the science.
No, I'm not actually looking forward to this.
One devotee, Pilates teacher, Gillian Byrne.
He has transformed the life of myself and all of my Pilates clients over the last many years, because every single Pilates class, and I've got to do it now, we are balancing on one leg. We are often trying to imagine cleaning our teeth with our non-dominant hand. We are squatting every day.
You're absolutely onto something here, because...
And the list goes on. This footage shows his final public appearance at the Hay Festival, here extolling the benefits of a cold shower.
And I cannot say it is a moment of bliss. It's normally followed by a lot of screaming, a sort of, ah! Oh!
That a man so full of life could go so suddenly has been a shock, but this is a moment to reflect and celebrate what he meant to so many.
Health.
Among them, Claire Yates, who, when she met him, had a chance to say thank you for a diet that really did change her life.
So I was able to reverse type 2 diabetes. I've been diabetes-free ever since. It was a life-changing impact, and I do say that he saved my life, because without him, I wouldn't have had the tools to take ownership of my own health and well-being.
Trust me, I'm a doctor.
And Claire is just one of many giving thanks today to a man whose legacy is happier, healthier lives.
Good-looking guy. I'd trust him.
David Sillito, BBC News.
Pope Francis has been meeting more than 100 comedians from across the world at the Vatican in Rome. Among those attending were some US celebrities, including Chris Rock, Jimmy Fallon and Whoopi Goldberg. The Pope praised their ability to spread serenity and smiles and said it was possible to make jokes about God without being blasphemous. Footage of Antarctic whales captured using drone cameras has revealed new insights into the lives of the giant marine mammals. Researchers working with the wildlife charity WWF filmed the whales from above to study their behaviour and to find out where their most important feeding sites are. Victoria Gill joined the scientists as they tracked the whales in the Antarctic Peninsula.
Approaching a giant's feeding frenzy.
Humpbacks working together to feed.
A circular net of bubbles corrals and traps the whale's prey. It's a glimpse into the lives of these huge marine mammals that scientists captured while we were filming with them in the Antarctic Peninsula. The researchers get close to the whales to study their health.
Right here.
To observe them and to measure the whales' bodies, they use a drone. Humpbacks migrate thousands of miles to these rich, icy waters.
Oh, my word.
Scientists want to pinpoint and protect their most important feeding sites.
They bulk up for 3 to 5 months, and they turn around and go back to the tropics to breed. Now, that requires a lot of energy, and we need to look at strategies to conserve whales.
The drones have revealed just how the whales use their entire 40-ton bodies when they feed.
It's using its pectoral fin as a tool to sweep the krill and, yeah, amazing.
They've also revealed how whales have recovered in the 4 decades since commercial whaling was banned. This blue whale mother and calf were filmed this year close to a former whaling station in South Georgia. Drones have even captured playful moments. And watching whales from above and studying them up close lets scientists delve into their lives like never before.
So beautiful. This might be the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Victoria Gill, BBC News in the Antarctic Peninsula.
And you can watch Victoria's full documentary, Secrets of Antarctica's Giants, on the BBC News channel this weekend and on iPlayer. Time now for a look at the weather, and Ben's here. Hi there.
Hi, Clive. Thank you very much. A bit of Friday evening drama in the weather. This picture came from one of our weather watchers in Worcestershire. There is more of this to come. The weekend is looking decidedly showery. And today, you can see from the satellite and radar picture, there have been lots of showers and thunderstorms, some continuing to rumble on right now. We've got quite a few showers moving across Wales, the Midlands, parts of southern England towards East Anglia. Another band of showery rain pushing into Northern Ireland, West Wales, southwest of England, rain in northern Scotland, some clear spells in between, allowing it to get relatively chilly. But this is the reason for all of those showery conditions. It's this big area of low pressure is going to be with us right through the weekend, driving our weather, driving further showers or longer spells of rain. Now, there will also be some spells of sunshine, and the sun is strong at this time of year. We're not far off the summer solstice, so get yourself into some sunshine. It won't feel too bad, but the showers will be widespread, heavy, thundery, slow moving too across parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, southern Scotland, where the winds are very light. Winds a lot stronger than that down towards the south of England. And those temperatures, 13 to 17, we should be at something more like 15 to 21 at this time of year, so still below average. So low pressure still with us through tomorrow night. This little weather front here pushing its way southwards, a band of rain with that. That will hang up for a time across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland into Northern England as we go through the day on Sunday. Either side of that, once again, sunny spells, showers, some of the showers heavy and thundery. Temperatures may be marginally higher, 14 to 19 degrees. What about next week? Does summer arrive? Well, not really. It is going to stay very mixed, perhaps turning a little bit warmer, but only a little bit. And in the meantime, a very mixed weekend. Clive.
Yeah, I got soaked today. All right. Thanks, Ben. Didn't have my brolly. That's it. Before we go, the King's birthday honours have just been announced, and among the recipients is the Post Office campaigner, Alan Bates. He'll be Sir Alan from now on. Here on BBC One, time to join our colleagues for all the news where you are. Have a very good night.